Thank you for joining us today for Cleveland Conversations. I'm Armin Budish, and I'm with the Levin School at Cleveland State University. Today we're going to talk about a really hot-button issue. It's immigration. We're hearing about it all the time from our politicians, our candidates. It's a hot-button issue. It's very controversial, at least some of the politicians trying to make it very controversial. We have two experts with us today to talk about it, to take us inside the immigration debate. We have Dr. Grace Huang, who is the co-director of the Center for Refugee and Immigrant Success at Cleveland State University. Grace. And we have Joe Cimperman, who's the CEO of Global Cleveland. Thank you both for joining us today. You're both wonderful experts. So let's start with both of you. Just tell us a little bit tell our audience who you are and why they should pay attention.
I am an associate professor in the Department of Teacher Education, and I also, like you say, the co-director for Center for Refugee and Immigrant Success, and I did quite a bit of research on refugees.
Great.
Yeah.
Joe?
I'm the executive director of the organization called Global Cleveland, and we work to welcome, attract, and retain international newcomers in Northeast Ohio. I'm born and raised in Cleveland. I'm the son of immigrants, and English was a second language for me growing up.
Great. Well, thank you both for being here today. Let's start with you, Grace. There's a lot of talk about how immigration is hurting the people who are here, the Native Americans. What do you say about that?
I would rephrase it, and I think it's really our refugee and immigrants enhance our workforce here. They really fill in the gap of our labor market. For example, we have the healthcare area, and we have the industry, small business. You will see our refugees and immigrants filling in. And I'll give you an example, the healthcare. Our big hospital, I don't know if I can say the name, but sure. UH Hospital, they built collaboration with the resettlement refugee agencies. And the food department at UH, they had an issue of the stability retention of their workers in food department. So the refugee resettlement agency, they brought in a group of refugees to learn to work in the food department. Since then, the rest is history. They found that it's remarkable of the retention of the stability of the refugee who work there, the hardest worker.
So you're not saying that they are displacing other workers that were already here. They're filling positions that were unfilled.
Yes. And our workers, native born here, many of them, turnover rate is high, so they definitely need workers that are stable. And so that is just a small, perfect example.
And we've all heard, I think, about landscaping and others that people who are here generally don't want those jobs. Mm-hmm. Joe, what have you found?
Those are hard jobs, and when you think about the life of a farmer, or like you said, Professor, the life of a landscaper, being in the food industry. The people who are coming here have a keen understanding of how important making it in the United States is. And, we say at Global Cleveland, to immigrate is an entrepreneurial act in and of itself. That if you can come to another country, a different culture, different language, different time zones, and you can make it, there's something in you that has a fundamental understanding and success opportunity within the workforce. That's really critical because, the idea of scarcity is one that I think a lot of Americans look at. If somebody's working in a job, they must have taken that from someone else. We know what Dr. Huang's talking about. There's a lot of jobs that people don't want to do, and refugees and immigrants fill them. On top of that, we know that immigrants and refugees, because of their backgrounds, oftentimes will have the opportunity to start a business. You look at all the restaurants in Cleveland, all the jobs that produces, but it's not just that. Think about the Cisco drivers that are coming and bringing the food supplies that restaurant's supporting. Think about the fact that, there's people that have to clean the hoods of these restaurants. That's another industry. So it's not only that they don't take jobs, it's that we know that immigrants and newcomers create jobs. And for an economy like Cleveland and in the Midwest, it's so important that we continue that innovation and that new ideas and people coming to our community who want to bring more than they take.
But from what I'm hearing, are you saying that immigrants and refugees are lesser educated than people who are here already and therefore taking jobs that educated people wouldn't take, or is that not correct?
No, it's not the case. And you'll see, especially with some of the folks that we're working with in a program that we have called Global Rising, which is like a leadership advancement program. Working 2 or 3 jobs isn't unheard of in the communities that Professor Huang and I work in. The whole purpose that people have is they want to be successful, and they're willing to go that extra distance to do it. The reason that Cleveland State and Case Western mostly Cleveland State, have so many international students is there's this constant striving to want to learn more, to want to be, even more educated, to have that accreditation. And so what we find is, if you can speak a lot of languages, if you're somebody that can make it here in the United States, you tend to have that drive and that sustainability. We say at Global Cleveland that our economy is 50 years ahead of our immigration policy. Because our economy is clipping. We know that as, a superpower in the world in terms of the economic stage. We have so many things that are happening in the United States. The way, though, that we are welcoming people and embracing talent is not keeping up with our economy, and that's something that has to change.
Mm-hmm. May I say something?
Yes, please.
I think about Albert Einstein.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
He was a refugee,
Yes.
right? Fled away from Nazi.
Yes.
The Google co-founder.
Yes.
He he fled from former Soviet Union with his parents. Now he's a co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
Without him,
Right.
what Google would be like right now?
Well, a lot
right, with that
closer
one
to
person?
home,
Yeah.
we have a provost.
Yeah.
Tell our audience about Nigamanth.
Well, Dr. Nigamanth Sridhar.
Yeah.
Yep.
His specialty area is in computer science, and I think, Joe, you know a little bit about it.
Yeah, he came to the
beginning
United
journey.
States probably, about 25 years ago, and came here on an F1 visa as a student, and he's brilliant. And, doesn't just have an understanding of engineering, computer engineering, but also has a way of helping other people understand it. He continued to work, he continued to apply for different visa, and now he's a full United States citizen, helping people in our community learn how to program, learn how to be computer engineers. He also happens to have a very special talent of higher administration. He's the provost of our university. Right? And that's someone who clearly could be doing very well in the private sector, right? Not only in Silicon Valley or somewhere in New York on the East Coast, but if he were, where his nation of origin is back in India, a person like that has incredible talents. Here he is, an immigrant to the United States, raising his family in the city, on the board of the Cleveland School of Education, the provost of our university, and helping people achieve their own dreams and successes. And that's the story of immigrants that we see over and over again.
So, you constantly hear these politicians, talking about how they're taking our jobs, and I'm sure you could both come up with examples, plenty of examples of refugees and immigrants that have come to the United States and created jobs for other people that have been huge benefit to the community. What can you say?
Well, I think about when I'm walking around this campus, when I look at the names that are on the buildings, I think about Monty Ahuja, right? Mm-hmm. Here's a person who came here, had an idea. People thought this company could work, couldn't work. He created a company. He employed thousands of people with his idea, and it became very successful and is now contributing to places like Cleveland State University, mm-hmm. university hospitals, right? His life could have taken a lot of different paths, but here's one story of one person who, because he pursued his dream and did so relentlessly, happened to be born in another country, wanted to chase his dream here in Cleveland, Ohio, has given back to this region again and again and again. And he's one example. You could look at other CEOs and people that are leading companies. You look at Euclid Avenue, some of the most beautiful renovation that occurred, even on East 9th Street with Heinen's grocery store, happened with a group of people whose family immigrated to the United States, the Geis family. Again and again, the contributions of people are there. And, you have to wonder why we continue to throw out this idea about people taking things. We're a country that has always figured out how more people can participate and contribute. And this idea that, somebody's taking something from somewhere else serves no one except for the person who's trying to stoke that fear.
You can take it in two different perspectives. And really, I think it's a win-win situation that we bring in diverse populations. And Joe mentioned about the immigrants. I am going to talk about a woman. It's a very brave woman. She is a refugee, Quarter native. She is the refugee coordinator at Cleveland Metropolitan School District. She is a single mom. When she came over here, she brought 3 young boys by herself. And she fled Iran and came over here. And in the beginning, she didn't speak English. However, she was the principal in back home and come over here and without a lot of support. But later on, she started to move herself from taking English as second language classes and then raising her children here. And she was hired by Catholic Charity as case workers, managers to work with refugees, newcomers. And now she is the refugee coordinator that working with thousands of children and their families in Cleveland Metropolitan School District. We are talking about just the newcomers at Cleveland Metropolitan School District. We have over 1,300 for the recent 3 years coming. That's the record they have. So thinking about how many thousands are there for our Cleveland Metropolitan School District for refugees.
There's an ongoing war in Ukraine right now, and a lot of refugees from that war. And I've heard numbers that are very high of people coming to Cleveland. Can you tell us about that and what you're doing to encourage that or enhance that?
The numbers that we hear are north of 5,000, and those
from Ukraine.
Just from Ukraine, and that's just within not even 2 years since the war, since the invasion began. And it's measured by a visa that the United States Department of State has offered called U4U, United for Ukraine. So we measure it based on how many people are using that visa and are coming to different parts of the U.S. As a result of that, Cleveland is ranked number 6 in the country for where people are fleeing from Ukraine to go to. And it makes sense, right? We have a community that's welcoming, period. Right? If you're coming here as a refugee, if you're coming here from Asia, from the Middle East, from the continent of Africa, from Europe, people feel very welcome here. We have over 120 different communities that are represented, languages that are spoken, probably double that with the dialects that are coming from different places. We have places like Cleveland State University that make it easier for people to attain that degree, to chase their dream. And then you have places like Parma, which are so embedded in this idea about welcoming people from Ukraine that people can go to their grocery stores, they can worship the way they want to. But it's not just that. It's all these different parts of the community that come out. People who are part of industry, organizations like the Jewish Federation, which has actually hired people to process U4U visas to get people to come to Cleveland. And so there's really an all-in perspective when it comes to that. And the situation in Ukraine is a great example of that. When people are fleeing, when people are coming from places where it's hard for them to live, Northeast Ohio has been that place that's welcomed them. And it's no different for the Ukrainian community as it is for the Congolese, the Nepalese, or people coming from places where, they're fleeing because they want their families to have a life.
People like to come to a place where there are other people that have a similar history, similar background, and they feel more comfortable with people that are similar. And as you said, in Parma in particular, but other places around Cuyahoga County, there's huge Ukrainian population to start with, and Ukrainian churches and community centers, and it's very welcoming. So tell me about what the Center for Refugees and Immigrants at Cleveland State does.
So our acronym is CRIS. That would be a lot easier. So our goal is to gather the CSU Cleveland State University interdisciplinary faculty talents and our students and our staff who are interested in refugee or immigrant work together, and we can serve the population of refugee and immigrants. And so the way we approach, number one, is from our scholarship. So we will do research and collaborate with, for example, I collaborate with faculty from business school. We all try to find opportunity to collaborate and work on interdisciplinary work. Also, we do community partnership. So the community partnership piece is like working with Global Cleveland, trying to get to know each other and also find opportunity to perhaps secure funding to work together. The resettlement, refugee resettlement agencies, community agencies, school districts. So we work a lot with these partnerships. So we are out there with our community agencies.
So let's separate that a little bit. So the refugees and immigrants that come often don't speak English or don't speak English well. How do you teach them at Cleveland State? I mean, how does somebody learn nursing or math or science if they can't speak the language?
So you actually pinpoint one thing that we are working hard on in the educational field, because language is always a challenge, not only for refugees but immigrants also. And refugees, many of them come from the background that because of war, they have very intermittent education being interrupted. So coming over here, trying to acculturate to a new environment and finding a new home, but not only that, they cannot speak English. So we have in the community agencies and also higher education like Tri-C that they provide English as second language program to serve them. But it's very challenging because we also want them to be independent. So they, the adults, the parents, they have to go into the workforce very soon. And so trying to juggle between children, work, and sometimes they work more than 2 jobs.
Yes.
And also to take courses, it's very challenging. But you see these refugees have the strength and the perseverance trying to go through and do all the things they could. That for myself, I feel so inspired by knowing them, that I realized how grateful I was to be here and not to complain about any pressure I have, because they face more stress than I do.
You know, the thing too that I think Dr. Huang is touching on is places like Cleveland State and Cuyahoga Community College focus on things like vocational ESL, right? So learning English, but also maybe doing it with that advanced manufacturing or nursing or IT. And there's this whole effort now to not just get people up to speed so that they can converse in English as they're living, but also specifically for their occupation, for how they're going to learn, how they're going to make a living and have that income. The one thing that I really love about our community, and Cleveland State is at the forefront of it, is there's a real sense that there isn't competition, right? We're all working for the same goal to grow our population, that we'll have more people coming from more places, that they'll be able to integrate and access a successful life that much more quickly. The flip side of the language side is this. If you go to the International Newcomers Academy, Qatar, I think, is very involved with that.
Yes.
Qatar is. And it's
What is Qatar?
Qatar,
I'm sorry.
The successful woman that I mentioned,
The
Qatar.
refugee program.
Yeah.
And she
Great.
works at this school on West 46th and Clark. There's currently 800 kids from about 50 different countries studying. And the only prerequisite is they can speak no English when they get in. And within 2 years, they could be interviewed on this panel.
Wow.
What I would love to see studied, and we haven't talked about this, but those kids who are from Iraq are learning Spanish from the kid from the Dominican Republic. She's learning Nepalese from the young woman from Nepal. In the middle of it, there's another conversation going on with somebody from, a nation where Swahili is spoken. and the mind, that young mind, that parts of their brain that are being activated by not only learning English at a younger age, which is easier, but learning from each other. I'm curious how successful they're going to be in the future. Because because they're getting exposed to that, and we often look at things like immigration as, oh, we have to deal with it, versus, my gosh, what another advantage this country and this community have by that incredible opportunity to learn something else that isn't the case in most countries that are homogenous.
And I have to say, actually, I send my students to do one-on-one mentorship at International Newcomers Academy. My students totally transform their understanding of we call them language deficit for those newcomers.
Yeah.
However, for us, actually, our students going over there and thinking that they know English, they're going to go and teach them English. They come back and I said, how do you feel? I feel I am very ashamed that I only speak English.
Yeah.
Really?
And they really appreciate for the rich culture and language in that school. It's just fascinating to be at the school.
We've talked about language a lot, but when refugees or immigrants come, they have other issues. They have no place to live in many cases. They need clothing, they need food, they need medical care. Does Cleveland State help with that?
We would once in a while do the donation drive and having the whole campus to mobilize to be aware of this issue. So we would once in a while do something like that. But I think our community agency, they are in the front line.
Would you partner with somebody like Global Cleveland for that?
Of course, and I think one of the key things is when we talk about this, it feels daunting. It feels far away. We know it's exactly what you said earlier. Fear enters the conversation. What it says to any good-hearted person is stay away. This is a topic too complicated, too radioactive to deal with. When the students that Dr. Huang is sending to the International Newcomer Academy go, and they experience these young people from another country, they're really getting closer to the human experience. They're getting closer to what it means to be alive. Not this young woman is from Jordan and I'm from Brecksville, and what do we have in common? It's shocking. And I think that people need to expose themselves more, and what Cleveland State helps to do and what a lot of our organizations do is normalize this conversation, right? This city 100 years ago had almost as many people born outside the city of Cleveland, the United States, than people born here. In the decade between 1920 and 1930, if you look a little bit after that, the number of people who were coming here, not only from the Deep South, because they were fleeing Jim Crow, but people coming from all over the world. And you would think in that time between 1920, 1930, 1940, we would be at our most disparate, the most chaotic. How would you even go to the grocery store? Half the people don't speak English. What do you mean you're on the streetcar with people that aren't from here? They don't even know what that is. In that same decade, in that same time frame, the Cleveland Metro Parks, the Cleveland City Club, the Cleveland Foundation were all formed in Cleveland at a time of our most divergent, our most diverse. And what does that tell us? That is the place that we need to get back to.
We are a city, county of immigrants.
Yes.
I mean, that is what we are. And that when I was county executive, I supported refugees and immigrants resettling here and doing what we could. Our county executive now, Chris Ronayne, has spoken publicly saying that's one way we're going to fill in our population that we've lost is through immigration and refugees, encouraging people to come here. What do you guys do, or your organizations do, to help that, to encourage people to come to Cleveland?
Let me just say one thing. I appreciate you saying that you helped people when you were the county executive. You did. You were there for them. But by allocating the resources that you did, that when you were in leadership, and now the county executive Ronayne is really continuing in terms of the spirit of welcome, the organizations like Refugee Response, Legal Aid, places like Global Cleveland, are able to serve so many more people, not just because you helped them, but because you used your ability to make those organizations successful. It's an exponential factor. And organizations like ours, working with places like Cleveland State, it's our job to basically put ourselves out of business. Dr. Huang and we have jobs because we're a remedy. The truth is, immigrants and newcomers have to be as often thought of as a tool for our community's rejuvenation as anything else is. We talk about brownfields, we talk about the environment, we talk about all these important issues around diversity, equity, and inclusion. Those are important topics. Those are also key economic development factors of success. And the more that we normalize it, that you did at the county, that Dr. Huang's doing it within the university, people like Provost Sridhar and President Bloomberg, the more people just come to expect it, we will have a place that's growing. We will have more people living here than we know where to find housing for, and we'll be that place that we were once, where we had a diversity that was marveled at by people from all over the country.
It's very nice of you to say.
And true.
And so we'll have Joe and Dr. Huang back again because they're very nice.
Can we come back?
I would
Let's come
love
back
to.
together.
I would love to. Yeah, we'd love to. And I promise you, I won't say anything.
Oh no, well, then we're not going to have you back.
That won't be Joe.
But immigration and refugees are, as we've talked, they're a hot topic right now. Politically, they're a football. They're getting kicked around. And if you listen to some politicians, it's like the cause of all the problems in the country. And I think we all agree, at least sitting here, that is totally not true. In fact, they are the reason that we're such a great country, a big part of the reason. This country has been built on refugees and immigrants coming to America and coming to Cleveland.
Yes.
And the benefit to all of us has been incalculable. As you said, go down Euclid Avenue and you see the names on buildings. It's immigrants and refugees, and they've created jobs and they've created opportunities for all of us who are here in the United States. So you guys are, are passionate. You're the experts, and we very much appreciate your coming and sharing with us today on this somewhat controversial topic, but I think you've made it clear it shouldn't be controversial. It's something that we should all be behind. So
we are very blessed to have people who want to come to Cleveland, right?
Absolutely.
And let us continue to blossom, flourish. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Dr.
for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you all for joining us today.